This is Optimal Living Daily, episode 728, The Triad of Hustling by M.O.N.E.Y of budgetsaresexy.com, and I'm Justin Malik. Happy Friday, and welcome back, or welcome for the first time if you're new here. This is where I simply read to you, kind of like an audiobook, but from a bunch of different authors. I typically narrate blogs that I think will help you optimize your life. But before we get to today's post, really quick, big thanks to FreshBooks for helping me bring this content to you. FreshBooks is the company I recommend and I use for invoicing, time tracking, expense tracking, and more. Come check them out totally free for a month and without entering any kind of payment info by visiting freshbooks.com/living. And now let's hear today's post as we optimize your life. The Triad of Hustling by M.O.N.E.Y of budgetsaresexy.com. 5 months ago, I was on the verge of burning out again. I got sucked right back into all my projects and had my head down grinding away as we do, when one day I look up and my son was there asking if I'd like to go on a hike with him. And by hike, he meant a walk down by the river, which was really a creek. I told him sure thing and planned to be back within the hour. 4 hours later, we came home and it was like the heavens shining down with harps and all. For the first time all year, I not only completely forgot about my work altogether, but I got to see the world through the eyes of a 5-year-old for 4 hours straight, and wow, was that a beautiful thing. No talking about goals or emails or the internet or really anything adult related whatsoever. It was literally just him and me in the serenity of nature, discussing every little curiosity a boy of that age wonders about. It was pure living. And we'd probably still be on that walk too if his poor little legs didn't fail him midway through. He told me he didn't want to stop until we reached another country. But those few hours were enough for me to assess what the hell I was doing again with my time, and even more so prompted me to make real changes so I didn't get sucked right back into it all again. I wanted to not only become a more efficient and productive worker again, but also a better person and overall daddy and husband too. When I got home, I made a list of all the projects I was working on and quickly realized that the answers I was looking for came down to 3 simple variables. Number 1, the amount of time each project was taking up. Number 2, the amount of money each project was making, or more aptly, not making. And number 3, the amount of fun I was actually having if I were being completely honest with myself. I began calling this the Triad of Hustling anytime I shared this new epiphany with friends, and the takeaway was that if you can score well in any 2 of the 3 departments, it was a project worth continuing with. No time and lots of money. Winner. Who cares if it's not that fun? No money, but you're loving it? Great. I don't mind spending time on stuff that makes me happy. No fun, no money, and gobs of hours of my time? Shut that down. As embarrassing as this probably comes across, it was amazing how clear these answers came to me just by asking these 3 fairly basic questions. Obviously, if you're not making any money on something and it's sucking up all your time and you hate it, you shouldn't be working on it. But again, sometimes you're so deep down in the weeds hustling your ass off that you forget to look up every once in a while and reassess. Not something you have the luxury of doing if you're living paycheck to paycheck, of course. In that case, you grind it out and do what you have to do. But if you're relatively fine and in a position to call the shots, these are excellent questions to be asking yourself. Even so, not all projects are so cut and dry. Sometimes you end up with hustles that come with just as many cons as they do pros, and you need help cutting to the core, especially for those who tend to learn more with their heart than they do with their wallet. For this, I recommend channeling your inner Derek Sivers. Quote, when deciding whether to do something, if you feel anything less than, wow, that would be amazing, absolutely, yeah, then say no. When you say no to most things, you leave room in your life to really throw yourself completely into that rare thing that makes you say, yeah. We're all busy. We've all taken on too much. Saying yes to less is the way out. End quote. Boom, the great equalizer, which is also great because it gets down to your more truer purpose too, versus the more factual sides of things, money, time, etc. If I had run this triad of questions on Budgets Are Sexy back in the day, it would have scored a paltry 1 out of 3 points. It took up hours of my time, made exactly $0 a month. But the one thing it did have going for it was that it was a ton of fun. And to this day, almost 10 years later now, I can unequivocally state that it's still very much a yeah versus a plain old yes. Yay. So whenever the triad fails you, pull out this bazooka to finish it off. Okay, to refresh, here are the 3 questions to ask yourself whenever you're reassessing your projects. Number 1, how much time are these projects sucking away from me? Number 2, how much money are these projects making me? And number 3, how much fun am I really having doing them? 3 out of 3, and you found a dream hustle. 2 out of 3, and it's still pretty solid as not all projects can be dreams. 1 out of 3, and it's probably time to reconsider or try switching things up. And then 0 out of 3, it's finally time to shut that down. And let me tell you, I've been shutting down a lot of lately, and it feels good. My family says I'm now much more attentive, apparently. I'm not nearly as grumpy anymore. Nearly? And the most important result of all, I feel like I'm living again. And here's the crazy part. My business hasn't declined at all. If anything, it's only gotten better because I'm much more focused and can appreciate the remaining projects I've actively chosen to keep. Oh, and remember how I announced last month that I've now stopped working on nights and weekends? Well, it's another result of this. We're now going into month 4 of not opening up my laptop even once on the weekend, and I owe it all to my smart and adventurous 5-year-old. It's a new dawn, my friends, and I hope you'll join me in challenging your current projects too. The triad separates the winners from the losers, and if all else fails, just ask yourself whether it's a yeah or needs to be converted down to a sad little yes, i.e. no. They say you can never buy up any more time, but this has got to be pretty close. You just listened to the post titled The Triad of Hustling by M.O.N.E.Y of budgetsaresexy.com. And speaking of money, thank you to my sponsor for today, FreshBooks. A challenge that I recommend trying is tracking your expenses every day for a month. See exactly how much you spend, and you can do that easily with FreshBooks without getting frustrated with tools like Excel. FreshBooks is a cloud accounting company for small business owners and freelancers. It's the easiest to use system that I've ever seen for tracking expenses because you can use it on a computer or you can use their app, which makes it really easy to track your expenses on the go, much better than using a spreadsheet. And that's just one of their features. They also have invoicing, time tracking, and more. Try all of the features of FreshBooks for free for a month with no commitment. You don't even have to enter a credit card. Just come by freshbooks.com/living and enter Optimal Living Daily in the How'd You Hear About Us section. Again, that's freshbooks.com/living. That Derek Sivers article he mentioned is called It's Either Yeah or No. I actually narrated that way back when in episode 44. This podcast was less than 2 months old back then, but you can check it out. I'm sure I sound a little bit different, but it's a good episode. Again, that's episode 44. And it's funny, the idea of this article to question what you're doing with those 3 criteria of time, money, and if you like it, trying to fulfill at least 2 of those seems so obvious, but we don't actively think about it. So try to do that today with your tasks. If it is your day job and you really want to stay there, or you're a student and you can't really leave your college, you might not be able to do this exercise with job or school related tasks, but I'm sure you can with other things like apps you use, social media, like the post from yesterday, whatever you're doing on weekends, all that stuff. So definitely think about it. And I'll leave it there for today. I hope you're having a happy Friday and a nice start to your weekend. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow where your optimal life awaits.
Hey, this is Dan from the Optimal Finance Daily podcast, which is a lot like this show, except more focused on personal finance. Justin handpicks the best posts he can find from blogs and authors like Ramit Sethi, Mr. Money Mustache, and more, and I read them to you 5 days a week. So if you enjoy this podcast, come on over and subscribe to Optimal Finance Daily too. And together, we'll optimize your financial life.
You've been listening to Optimal Living Daily. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on each new episode, and head to oldpodcast.com, that's OLDpodcast.com, for a free gift as well as more actionable tips and resources to help you maximize your potential. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your optimal life awaits.